Okay, I'll get started, eh? Ia maole, ko hoku hingo ko Katalina Ma, ko e ko lele mai me he tō ko tawak whai ana moi halaski o mata aho, masi tua nuku wawa, ko e lolo ia. Ko e ku whae e ko ne lele mai ana ia me he louto kai ano moi hala hopo hopo, tōko nofo boi vai ko loko wha, ko laha, o ngā tapu, malo. Kia ora e te whānau and welcome, warm Pacific greetings to your session today. My name is Katalina Ma and I'm the kaitiaki for Te Huapaitanga, which is Pathway Programs working out of the Schools and Community Engagement Office at Waipapa Taumatoro, University of Auckland. So what is Te Huapaitanga and what programs that we oversee? As mentioned by Maria, so we have Auckland Maths Challenge, STEM Online, Pacific Academy. We also run a biannually Waipapa Taumatoro Teachers Conference, as well as working alongside 15 partnership schools who have signed the MOU from 2024 to 2030 on a journey to better understand and offer like making sure that they have a qualification that's fit for purpose for Tauira Maori and their Pasifika students in preparation for tertiary study. Today's kōrero will be in 3 parts. So we'll look at some data, a lot of the data that sort of informs our decisions as a university to provide outreach programs that assist Tauira Maori and Pasifika students. So we'll look at Waipapa Taumatoro data, and then I'll talk about Auckland Mathematics Challenge. Then we'll go on to students going from school into our university and what that looks like, and then talk about STEM Online, and then what we're getting students to consider while they're at school, and then talk about the outreach program that is Pacific Academy. So, Waipapa Taumatoro. In terms of our headcount in 2023, we had just over 35,000 students enrolled at our university, and that goes from tertiary foundation all the way up to PhD. And what you can quickly see in terms of the makeup of Māori and Pasifika is that Māori students make up 6% of that population, and Pasifika make up 8% of that population. In terms of headcounts for undergraduates, so first year students doing a bachelor's degree, we had just over 5,100 students enrolled in 2023. In 2024, we had just over 5,300 students. And then in first semester 2025, we had just over 5,700 students. So it's interesting to see when we think about spaces that the university currently has, we're not expanding, especially here in Tamaki Makaurau, we're not expanding, building more campuses and stuff. And however, our first year undergraduate programs is encouraging to see that more and more students are choosing Waipapa Taumatoro. But how do we make sure that when they come into our space that they're experiencing success? The most popular programs amongst our first year students are those that are listed. So this is our top 10. And what's interesting, what recently came into our top 10 was this year was a Bachelor of Architectural Studies. So we'll see that, which is encouraging to see, because it's nice to see that our students are starting to think out in terms of a wider scope, as opposed to our more traditional sort of programs that we offer. So that's really good for us to see as a university, that students are starting to think about other areas to engage in. However, with the increasing number of students coming through to our university, prior to 2024, our data showed that our retention rates after first year for students was declining. So you have your undergraduate in terms of the blue line there, as well as our other ethnic groups, but you can see below them are our Māori and Pasifika students that were experiencing much more of a decline in comparison to other ethnic groups. What's encouraging to see though, however, in terms of 2024 is that it's gone up. And there are many reasons as to why students would leave after their first year. and we're going to focus on one. What a lot of our programs in terms of outreach focus on at the moment is, were they prepared for university rigor, or the way that we assess at our university. So, Auckland Mathematics Challenge. Auckland Mathematics Challenge started in 2019, and a bit of a story behind it. I was a new HOD at a South Auckland school, and in that first year, I accompanied our maths team to the regional maths competition, our year 9 and 10 teams. And it was the taxi ride home that a student said to me, do you teach us the same stuff as other kids at other schools? And I said, yep, level 4 or 5 of the curriculum, parts of level 6, depending on the levels and stuff. But it was, and then he said, well, then why did we get a hiding up there for everyone to see? So it was interesting because at that point, these students wanted to compete. They didn't want to go and participate, or they didn't want the experience. They wanted to go there and experience success. And that was an opportunity for me to sort of go back and think, okay, that was said in August. I could just leave it and sort of just be like, oh, it was said, we've done maths, it's done. But there was an opportunity to get alongside a friend that was a maths teacher but went into the university space, and I said, is there similar trends that you're seeing at the university space about, in terms of Tauira Maori and Pasifika, in terms of their performance in first year. So we started this maths competition because it was just to normalize like that. For such competitions, it requires practice, and it's almost like a sport. Like, you can't just turn up to the day and expect to experience success. It's something that you have to train towards throughout the year. So we started that with 6 secondary schools in South Auckland, and we did 4 events across term 4 and then 1 in term 3 just before the maths competition. And that was to encourage some of the schools that had never gone to maths for years, to sort of like try and get them to offer that opportunity again to the young people. But also at these secondary schools were predominantly Māori and Pasifika students, so trying to get students to engage in competitive maths that required a routine of practice, but also that trying to get students to do maths for as long as they could in the secondary school space, because of the opportunities that it leads to in terms of tertiary study. So what started in 2019 quickly grew to also including year 7 and year 8, and that was an opportunity to try and work with our feeder schools, and try and sort of respectfully get into our feeder schools and say, hey, what are you doing with your year 7 and 8 programs? So we can try and have some alignment, because we were seeing, increasing gaps of understanding when they were coming into year 9. So it's been a good way to get schools to work alongside each other. And then we sort of realized that actually the issues of, students coming in at year 9 and not knowing things such as their times tables actually starts at the primary school level and stuff. So working alongside primary school so we could better understand that and see a pipeline in terms of, like, if this is what they're doing in the primary school, what does that look like in our secondary school space? Or if this is the skills that we require at year 9 and year 10 so that we're able to build upon, what should they be doing in year 5 and year 6? So what's encouraging about the year 5 and 6 year 5 and 6 events is that what they wanted was a resource. The teachers were just like, we're happy to run this program. We're happy for you to come and run these events. But if you could write a resource for our students to practice from, then we actually understand what is it that you're wanting, or where this leads to in terms of your 9 and 10 competitions. So that was, we created a booklet. It was about 100 questions, and we gave it to the students, and what they normalized was the fact that they just needed to practice questions from the booklet, which is like our year 7 and 8 competition. It's practicing past maths questions, 9, 10 old maths questions. But we're trying to also include some of those numeracy questions so that they start seeing, like there's things that we're working towards also outside of going to the maths. We're also trying to build your confidence and being able to, practice towards numeracy tests as well. So yeah, we go from years 5 to 10 now, and that's across 29 schools here in Tamaki Makaurau. The events run in term 2 and term 3. And what's the best thing about it is that it's hosted by schools. Our combined event, we have our Central and West, as well as our East and South come together for year 7 and 8 combined, hosted by one school, and then also the same for our year 9 and year 10. And the whole time we're trying to encourage schools, like this is preparatory work for you to go into maths, to consider maths. And for some schools, they said, oh, we just prefer being here. But what we try and say to them, is to normalize that these students go and be in an environment, because, we saw the population in terms of Māori and Pasifika. We need to normalize that they're in amongst other populations, because it's to normalize that when they get into their tertiary space, this will be what it sort of looks like as well. So being in different environments and normalizing that. And here are some pictures from our events. And we always say to the students in the first, in each of the first events across the different locations, is that we send one email out to teachers. And we're real grateful for teachers that want this for their kids. We talk them through the process of EOTC forms, asking for permission, getting things in early, organizing transport, so students understand that behind the scenes, this is what happens, to be able to give them an opportunity and stuff. So there's a lot of sort of sharing across the journey with these young people, so that they know that, one, to be an opportunist and take up opportunities that are available to them, but two, to also be to be grateful for those that want that for them. So school, Waipapa Toma today. So students coming from the school space and what they're sort of seeing when they come into our university. In terms of first year undergraduates, so we saw the population. I'm just going to give you some numbers in regards to what the makeup was of Māori and Pasifika in those first years. So in 2023, just over 5,100 altogether, 336 of those students were Māori and 402 were Pasifika. 2024, just over 5,300, increase in number of Māori, 420, and an increase in number of Pasifika students coming through. In 2025, just over 5,700 students in semester 1 alone. Another increase in Māori students, 429, and another increase in Pacific students coming through, which is good for us as a university. And what we try and encourage our students, Māori and Pasifika students, is, when you get into university spaces, it's an opportunity for you to also share amongst all the other ethnic groups and stuff, and learn from one another, so that when you go out to be sort of, universal sort of students in different spaces, then, you have an understanding of different ethnic groups, but also a strength in your own. So these students have come in first year, and they quickly notice some of the makeup of our assessments. So in terms of this first year compulsory core paper for engineering, mathematical modeling, when I present this to students, the first thing that they notice quite quickly is the 40% exam and the 30% test. So they quickly see that it's about 70% of test and exams altogether. And then they ask, like, oh, what does that mean? I was just like, it's quite similar to externals and internals. So 3 different types of assessment, bulk of it being test and exams. A statistics paper, also sharing that the statistics paper is compulsory in terms of their commerce degree. It's part of sciences, but also a compulsory paper if they're wanting to do psychology. And what they quickly see there is the 50% exam component. Health science, quite a few of our Māori and Pasifika students coming through are part of health science academies. And what they see is, like 4 different types of assessments, but there's the online formative, there's tests, as well as final exams. And I know we're all here for math, but I thought I'd chuck in the law paper, because I also think that students that are good at math can also go and be good at law. Okay, and what they quickly see here, law students who are thinking about law, is the 70% final exam. So, what do external credits have in terms of a relation in terms of success at our university? So quite fortunate in my position that I get to work alongside data scientists to produce data that we can use to be able to inform school communities. So our data shows that if students are coming in, so this is general population, students that come in with more than 20 external credits are likely to experience 92% success in their first year undergraduate. If they come between 0 and 20 external credits, 81% success. And if they did not pass or did not sit any externals, 65% success. For Māori students, more than 20 external credits, 97% success in their first year. 0 to 20, 76% success. If did not pass any externals, 70% success. Pasifika students, 91% success in their first year if they come in with more than 20 external credits. Between 0 to 20 credits, 69% success. And if they did not pass or did not sit any externals, 55% success. So STEM Online. STEM Online is an online teaching and learning tool. It's used in terms of a assistance tool within the classroom. So like it covers most of the NCA externals for the STEM related topics, such as chemistry, physics, and math. Students are or teachers are able to register their students as early as term 1. And there's also an opportunity for teachers to be able to see what the engagement is like, depending on the task that students have completed, based on what teachers have sort of set for them to be able to do. This was what it was traditionally over the last few years, STEM Online. So it was a tool that was brought in just before COVID, and it was to try and assist schools that also didn't have an expert in the classroom to be able to offer support around externals for the STEM subjects. But what we've noticed now is that there's an opportunity just to be able to use it as part of teaching and learning. And in the last sort of 5 years that the program has been running, 5 to 6 years the program has been running, is that it was the teachers that registered students. And this year, because we're quite fortunate that we have an evaluator, our evaluator told us over the last 2 years, the feedback was that some students wanted to be able to register themselves because sometimes their teacher was just like, oh no, we're not using the program. They would be using it in other classrooms, but some teachers wouldn't let them use it or wouldn't register them for their other classes. So we opened it up at the end of term 2 for students to self-register and stuff. So we've had quite the uptake in terms of students self-registering, but also encouraging students that if it's a product that they really enjoyed or that really assisted their sort of, the teaching and learning that's happening in the classroom, that they suggest that as a program that they get access to as early as term 1 through their teacher. So the school space. Working alongside partnership schools, it's encouraging school communities for students to compete an NCA as opposed to participate, that they're normalizing trying to get merits and excellence in their internals, trying to get level endorsement, trying to get subject endorsement, and then finding opportunities to get ahead. And when we present this slide to different sort of various communities that we work with, we say that the key word in that whole slide is the word "and." We've normalized. It's become sort of normal for students to get to October and sort of make exams optional. And I guess what's been great was having that data that shows what success looks like at our university. It's saying it's being able to do well in internals as well as externals as a preparatory tool for when you come into university spaces and have various assessment types that you're exposed to. So subject endorsements also highlights that students have engaged in exams and been successful in exams. And that sort of sets them apart from students that are just getting level endorsements, because we know that you can get level endorsements by doing just internal sometimes. But also encouraging students that work in the classroom is not enough. It also requires work outside of the classroom, whether that's a study schedule or finding opportunities to get ahead through tutorial services or things such as STEM Online to assist the teaching and learning in the classroom. Here's an example of some of the data that we share with schools. So we look at their UE percentages in terms of like how they're going in terms of UE, and this is based on just students in their schools that have taken at least 3 university approved subjects, so that these are the students that actually have the opportunity to get university entrance. We don't look at whole populations because we know some schools work differently in terms of different pathways that students have. So this is just at looking at students that have the opportunity to get UE. So here's an example of a school who are doing quite well in terms of the last few years in terms of UE. So students gaining UE, 3 approved subjects, at least 14 credits in each, getting at least 60 credits and getting that UE literacy. But what's interesting is when we look at the same school, you can see that the number of students that are getting 20 plus external, so getting at least 20 external credits from those groups, is on a decline. So, like if you look at 2024, they got their highest UE percentage, just over like close to 88%, but their 20 plus external credits was at the 10%. So 10% of students from that group got at least 20 external credits. And what we're trying to encourage these, students and schools and stuff is to, how do we normalize that they're turning up to exams, but confident enough to sit the exams? And that comes back to making sure that schools are prioritizing externals if UE is a qualification that they want their students to leave with. So Pacific Academy, we run term 3 tutorials, and it's across 7 weeks. So we start in week 3 of term and we finish in week 9. And it's to support Tauira Maori and Pasifika doing level 2 and 3 externals for STEM related. So we have 3 locations. We're quite fortunate with the partnership schools that 2 schools have also offered to open up their spaces to act as hubs. So we use one of our university spaces, which is Te Tai Tonga, which is in our Manukau area, and that is to support South Auckland based learners. St. Peter's College is a Central Auckland hub for students who live in the Central Auckland area or attend schools in the Central Auckland area. And then we have Avondale College for West Auckland. So we cover externals for maths, chemistry, physics, calculus, and statistics. And we just did the numbers yesterday because it was our last week this week, and we had 409 students come in term 3. We have a break in between because then we go into our holiday tutorial sessions. And on top of what we offer in level 2 and 3, we also offer the level 1 standard, the 1.4 standard, as well as the level 3 biology externals. But to be honest, the reason why the program's been successful it started in 2019, and why it's been successful over the last few years can be summarized by this whakatauki, which is hea ha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is important in this world? It is people, it is people, it is people. As mentioned before, we have an evaluator that evaluates the effectiveness of our programs. And what scores highly the last 2 years in terms of doing evaluation is that the students talk about the people that are in front of them, going through the content. The mentors that we have are made up of experienced teachers, beginning teachers, pre-service teachers, university students, as well as university alumni that are now working in industry. And it's to normalize for these students that they can see across different people that are sitting in front of them, that they have a similar value set of wanting better outcomes for Tauira Maori and Pasifika, but also be able to adjust and adapt their teaching to provide, like sort of better outcomes at the end of each session for the learners that are in front of them. And here are some pictures from our session. Last year, we had over 42 schools represented from the Auckland area coming in, engaging in the tutorials. But what's interesting is a lot of from our evaluations, I should have put the slide up, but a lot of our evaluations was students were ranking over 4 out of 5 in terms of the survey. But the lowest score that they ranked 3.8 out of 5 was whether they saw themselves as university material. And it's interesting because I said to the evaluator, no, he goes, oh, it's still over 2.5. So it's still over the halfway mark. And I was like, oh, but it sticks out like a sore thumb when it's the only thing in the 3s and stuff. So as well as 7 weeks of, sort of intense content coverage, assisting. And what we say is that we're just assisting the teaching and learning in the classroom. It's only effective if you do the work in the class, and then acts as a top up. But we also have realized that these students are not just needing help with maths and science. They're also needing help with self-esteem to be able to see themselves in those spaces, but also see themselves in spaces that, even though the increasing number of Māori and Pasifika coming into our uni, there's still like minimal numbers making it into our technical programs such as engineering and health science. And part of that is being able to meet a requirement that we have as a university. I guess it sort of leads in nicely into the closing remarks in terms of why do we have these outreach programs for, why is the university providing these outreach programs for young people? One is to try and improve our, wanting to see more Māori and Pasifika come into our university space, but also wanting to see more of them try and get into areas so that we're having diversity across industry, as well as diversity across further study and research. I'm grateful to be working at a university that values seeing the student before the enrollment. We could easily just sit on the side as a university and just wait. And then when they don't experience success, that's money spent by the individual. And that's also money that they're going to have to pay back. But if it's our university that has requirements to get into engineering, if it's our requirement to get into health sciences, then we should be out there sort of fronting it and being, seeing where we can support students so that they're coming into our university confident and ready to experience success. And that's what's been great about the data. sharing the data with schools, with families, with communities, so that it's a collective that supports the young person, because we also know it's their success is the success of their village as well. Awesome. I guess we can go into questions if anyone has any. I'll just stop sharing so I can see the comments. Waiheke High School, my favorite. Oh, just doing the movie stuff. But are there any questions that anybody had in terms of what we offer, but also some of the data that you saw? Yep. So in terms of like outside Tauranga, I know that our advisors, we have an advisor allocated to schools in the Tauranga area. Part of their overview when they're presenting to students as well as to the careers advisors also shows the data that I showed today, but you could be real specific and say, hey, could we look at our school data? So like, I guess that's what's really good with the data that's available to me, because you saw one example of a school that had UE and what their 20 plus looked like. But it'd also be good to look at your own school data so that you can see the relationship between what success looks like at our university and what you could be working on. Oh, absolutely. It's been a game changer when we've presented that, because schools have been like, I tell kids about externals, but we just didn't have anything solid to be able to go by. So
I think there's a question there. Are there any support for externals in level 2 and 3 in Canterbury as well?
I guess STEM Online is probably our biggest platform that goes outside of Auckland. So there's STEM Online. I know that like what we're doing in Auckland, there've been schools, like schools that are like, oh, could you do something for us? So for example, North Shore are asking for something over the North Shore. But like for me, I always say, well, let's see what Massey's offering, because we don't want to step on any toes. But if it's something that you'd see beneficial in terms of Canterbury, then it's also something you can put forward to the universities in Canterbury and be like, hey, we saw this presentation, we saw what University of Auckland's doing. Is there something similar we could have here? But in terms of the resources, if you're like, oh, can I see some of the resources that you have for these Pacific Academy tutorials, happy to share that with you as well. What I'm hoping to do is with Pacific Academy that we start an online service for Māori and Pasifika, because there's been some interest definitely out in rural areas to be able to get support that's available online in addition to the STEM Online.
Any other questions? You're back in the classroom and you start doing this. Thank you, Malo Alpito Kat. Thank you so much for sharing the service that you're doing in your space. What I loved, I've written some notes from when you were sharing your kōrero around this all started from a need. That car ride that you had back with that student from Mathx however many years ago. And it led you to ask that question around, were they prepared for university rigor? And then you start talking about Māori and Pacific students needing to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. And then also the importance of externals and the fact that you took action. You know, there's a lot of people that talk about theory, but you actually took action and gave it a go. And what I loved is you're starting to see students self-registering now in their study that live place. And that's a beautiful transition to see. So thank you for all the work you're doing in your space, because what you're doing is you're lifting Māori and Pacific self-efficacy. And that's the biggest thing. Hugest is not even a word, everyone. Just made that up today. The biggest thing that we can have in this space. So thank you for coming through.